Palestinian children, the Jebusites, and the evil, because these are immature thoughts. So if you don't carry your thoughts to wisdom, well then it's no use Achilles or Ulysses returning to Penelope immature, because Penelope will just take the other suitors. It's the same story in the Greek myth as in the Bible, as in the Hebrew mythologies. These are just all, it's mythologies about how the human mind works, how the emotions work, how you rescue them from the depths of despair, how you raise vices into virtues, how you transmute, sublimate, how you become the alchemist, the priest, and the sovereign unto yourself. It's all there. All my presentations are dealing with the glory of all the scriptures. All the scriptures are glorified. Astrology is glorified. Sacred geometry is glorified. Numerology, all of the sciences are glorified. All of them.
And see, and it's not about me glorifying scriptures. It's about me interpreting them and reading between the lines and getting the truth out of them. I don't go to the Bible to glorify it. I go to the Bible unbiased, open-minded, ready to investigate it. And that's how I get the truth. If you go to it that way, Santos, and not as a believer, but as someone that's trying to challenge it, you'll get the truth about the Bible. You'll get the historical truth about it. See, Santos, the mistake that you're making is that you say the Bible can be used for astrotheology. We know that Jesus is a personification of the sun, and the 12 disciples are each of the constellations. We can break down that Last Supper picture into a calendar. And I've done it on my channel. We know that the Last Supper picture is a calendar. Let me teach you something, Santos, about your Bible that's going to blow you away. I've learned so much from you, so I'm going to teach you something here today, because I see now that you're on as aware as I thought you were about the biblical history. So let me teach you something here. Here's the picture of the Last Supper. Let me share my screen. Let me give all of you Christians a lesson. So Santos agreed that the Bible can be used for astrotheology. Let's just simplify that real quick. We all see this picture of the Last Supper in front of the screen. Now, Jesus is in the middle of his 12 disciples at this table. This table represents a planetary alignment, but we'll get into that in the future. Let me keep this simple. This is a calendar we're looking at. All right. Now, if you look at the disciples, they are in 4 groups of threes. 4 groups of threes. And that's the seasons. All right. We have 4 seasons, 3 months each. And that's exactly what we see in this calendar. But the only thing we're missing here is the moon. So this calendar is another way the table would be ma'at, balance in the scales. So hold on, let me show you Christians something. If you don't mind. So the feast is everyone gets the same amount of wine, same amount of crackers. It have to be even. This is the feast of that's dealing with balance, fertility. Like Santos said, AU is gold. This happens during autumn time. We know autumn. And the calendar was messed up with Augustus. So we had the celestial Sabbath changed. And no one knows the true Sabbath that the Mayan knew, but it passed on September 23rd. That was 777. What we're looking at here is the 4 seasons, which 3 months each, revolving around the sun. This is no different than looking at a solar system with everything revolving around the sun, but that's really not how it works. All of this stuff is revolving around the pole. So when Santos say that the Bible is a book of astrotheology, that's what makes it so divine. He's wrong. That's what makes it a book of slavery, because all forms of theology are wrong. Theology is anti-spirituality. Theology deals with theory. Theories are theology. and scientism is theology. So theology is not the answer, and astrotheology is not the answer. Now, astro projection and astro spirituality is the answer. But you can't have that if you're going to look at the Bible and glorify it and not see how it relates to the celestial luminaries. Because when you look at what they done with the Bible, they took us off of the 360-day calendar and put us on a Gregorian calendar where Jesus split the timeline, just like he's splitting this table in the middle. All right. So if you say that the Bible isn't literally and we shouldn't take it literal, well, we reckon our days and our calendar around the death and life of Jesus, literally. Holidays are based on Jesus, literally. So when you say don't take the Bible literally, I'm 33 years old, but that's according to the Gregorian calendar. I'm literally 33 today, but according to the ancients, I'm around 31 because those 2 months that was added shouldn't be there. So when you realize that the Bible has its own calendar and you won't abandon that calendar or the Bible, you're still under the Gregorian Hellenistic deception. Because when you talk about the Bible, you have to keep in mind that heliocentrism deals with hell, and that hell is a Christian concept. But in its original conception, hell had nothing to do with a place of fire. Hell was a certain type of ideology that we call heliocentrism today, fire-based spirituality. We say that the English is a fire-based language. Well, yes, because it has a fire-based spirituality. It's a sun-centered ideology. The Western world is the less spiritual on the earth. When you say that Christianity is one of the oldest religions, no, it's not. It's the youngest. And I can prove it. Now, when you go back and see where Christianity come from and Kemet, you're still not dealing with the oldest form. But even then, it wasn't called Christianity. It has morphed into something today that's new age. And I'm trying to get us out of it. The Bible start off with in the beginning with the book of Genesis, but we know that that's not the true beginning. Santos agreed that the Bible is a book of mythology, not to be taken literally. He compared it to Jack and a beanstalk, but if he see the Bible that way, that he could compare it to Jack and the beanstalk, why is it he passionate like me to awaken our Christian brothers and sisters and let them know that this, hey man, there was no talking snakes. This book is a book of beliefs. Why are we taking it literal? See, there are some things we should take literal about the Bible. We shouldn't take the Bible itself literal as the word of God, but we should take the history of the Bible as literal history, meaning what Gutenberg did with his press and the councils that went along with making the Bible canon law. So there's a law aspect, a historical aspect to the Bible that literally happened. But the things in the Bible are fiction. We know that they're just literature. But the Bible itself are using this literature to give us real historical events. For example, there was an Exodus, but not the way the Bible teach. There was a Genesis, but not the way the Bible teach. There is a law, but not the law that the Bible teach. There's a law of nature that the Bible goes against that. So I'm not saying that, you know, I should go around crucifying Christians and giving them a hard time. I'm saying that we should do to the Christians the same thing we're doing with any other globalist. Since the globe is a religion, the Bible is a religion that can be compared to Jack and the beanstalk. I think we should get busy unlocking the minds of the Christians just as much as we're doing the globalists, because you can't compare the globe to Jack and the beanstalk. It's an intricate piece of deception, I must say. But the fact that we can disprove men walking on water and talking snakes in 1 minute, and we can give people the history of the Bible and set them free in just a few days, then I think we ought to do that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fall back from the flat earth, and I'm going to go back teaching on the Council of Nicaea and breaking down the true roots of Christianity, because I was under the impression that everyone on the panel knew these true roots. If you knew the true roots of Christianity, you would understand my anger, because I do have ancestors who was affected by Christianity. Marlena just brought up her ancestors as well. So anyone that's not going to be compassionate about that real history, to me, they're evil. To me, this Bible has hardened their heart to be consoled with their fellow brothers. I'm telling you, when I hear the Bible, when I think about the Bible, it gets under my skin, just like when Jews hear about Hitler, because we understand that the Bible is real history. The God of the Bible had a real army that he led through Joshua. And though these characters in the Bible are fiction, the armies were real. There were real Christian armies that were led to enforce this belief on my ancestors, as well as many others like Marlena, and they're still doing it today. So that's my problem with it, and it must end.
Okay, so I guess people really see the Bible differently to how I see it, and that's fair enough, because it has been used as a very destructive book, for sure. You know, witch burnings, etc. Yep, but I don't see it like that. So I use it as a great mystical. It's totally mystical. It's totally analogic. There's not much allegory there. It's all high level spirituality. There's actually not much literal in it at all. Yeah, it's got some of the lower levels of literalism in it, embedded in it for children. But apart from that, wow, the teachings are absolutely mystical. But again, it's, you know, they're just there for, it's just a book. That's how I see it. And some very, very evil people like Jehovah's Witnesses, who work for the Jesuits, Mormons, etc., who all work for the Jesuits, incorporated under their bloody regime. They're all teaching a totally false lie, perpetrating the lie that Jesus is historical, hence making Christianity only a very the youngest. People think it's of course the most recent, and Islam they've been around forever. There never was a time when there never was Christianity. All the church.
Yes. I would like to teach you about a time where that predates Christianity. See, because
there never was.
Yes.
There never was.
Yes. That I would see. For you to do that is to undermine what I have to teach for you, my brother Santos. You can say there never was, but I'm telling you there is. There was a time when Christianity did not exist.
Absolutely not.
Okay, and if you're gonna deny that, then you do understand that the alphabet J just came into existence. That's a young alphabet. So there was no Jesus. Now the whole thing about Christianity.
That's a lie. That's a lie. Jay's been around forever. Jay has always been around. Always.
Okay. Well, listen. These are arguments that Christians make among themselves, which is one reason why I'm not a Christian. Because there are Christians that agree with me. There are Christians that don't agree with me. I talk to different Christians every day, and everyone have their own doctrine, just like Mr. Santos have his own doctrine. Like I said, there are homosexual churches that have their own doctrine. So I don't deal with the doctrines of men on my channels. I deal with the truth of nature. All right. So the thing about this, what I want to go in is when you say that there was never a time when Christianity didn't exist, that's your belief. And that's something you're emotionally attached to believing for whatever reason. But Bibles didn't always exist. The teachings of Christ didn't always exist. Early people didn't have a biblical based ideology. They had an ideology that connected them to Mother Nature and the plants. In fact, early Christians there wasn't even a word called Christian. When you go and look at the culture that Christianity was birthed from, it come from the Minoans and the Minoan cultures. And they had a spirituality that was centered around the worship of the Great Mother. They worshiped the serpent goddess. That serpent became the serpent that was speaking in the Garden of Eden. That was the serpent that was the symbol of the female fertility and the womb worship of the woman. Now, the woman and the serpent was cursed in the Bible. That's when we left matriarchal ideologies to patriarchal ideologies that we're in today. Adam was given dominion over the earth and the animals. And that's what Adam would be the Pope today. But Adam is Atum, it's Adamu in the Sumerian, or Menes to the Kemetic people, Narmer. This is the first ruler of the New World Order. The Bible starts off the book of Genesis telling you the genealogy of the kings, the genetics of the kings. When you say that the Bible is a good book, no, it's a book of bloodline. It's a book of succession. When you look at those testaments, those two testaments are based upon the two testes of the male phallus. The phallus is centered around the obelisk worship. This was the timekeeping system that was based around the rule of the pharaoh. He ruled with his phallus or through his lineage. And the pharaoh ruled under the phallus or the obelisk. There's one in Washington that George Washington have. Freemasonry started in Egypt, just as well as the modern forms of Christianity that plague the world today. So only thing I'm saying is, before people worship Jesus, they worship the pharaoh. And that Jesus being Apollo or the sun god is the first rising sun, which is the first pharaoh Narmer. All right. In Genesis, when it said, let there be light, that was day one on a Gregorian calendar, which says that this was the AD Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. That was the first day Jesus would have been born in the mythological Bible. It's the literal historical day where Narmer would have had the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. That unification was really the Greeks and the Egyptian, and that was the first unification of the New World Order that we've been in for the past 7,000 years. That's why that pyramid is on the back of your dollar. That's why the main two ancient empires that influence Western thought is Greece and Egypt. And that's why they are the main two cultures that the Bible are founded on. Moses learned from the Egyptians. This is pharaonic worship. When we talk about heliocentrism, Christianity is a form of it. Just because you find out the earth is flat, don't mean that you're not sun-centered or that everything isn't revolving around Christ. And that's still a form of Hellenism. So what I'm saying is the deception is very real. You speak about syncretism, Santos, but syncretists would have been crucified by Christians in the ancient world, and true syncretists like myself are still getting crucified by Christians. Because I have true syncretism, I don't accept any one particular book. I sync them all together. I sync the Bible with the Quran, with the Dhamma, and with what I see in nature and with what mainstream science teaches us. And I don't conform or glorify any particular book because I see how they all are synced. I see that the true book is written in nature, and there was never a need for us to tear down trees to print books for man to rule people with deception under. So like you said, you always make the comparison of the Bible is not evil, but people use it for evil, and you compare it with a knife. But I think that that's deceptive, because we can have a picnic on top of a nuclear bomb. That don't make the nuclear bomb less dangerous. It just means we're using it as a picnic table. But I think what'll make the world more safer if we got rid of all nuclear bombs. And that's the same thing I feel with all religions, which are the #1 cause of war. And I have so much to say and so much more to teach about Christianity, if you guys would allow me to. But I don't want to hog the panel, because I know we have other people want to speak. But I do have new things to teach you guys who are Christians, if you would give me that opportunity, because I have things you don't know. But everything you're trying to teach me, I already know. I know about the Bible.
Brother Sanchez, excuse me. The whole reason why Karen brought you guys on here is so you guys could talk, so don't feel like you're hogging up anything. I just had to say that.
Thanks, Marlene.
And thank you for you're welcome.
You know what?
And thank you for clarifying stuff for me, because even though I do know a lot about the Bible, because I had to. just because I don't apply that stuff in my life. You know, I understand also where Santos is coming from, how he uses it as a tool, not to be a Bible pounder. You know, he doesn't sit there and I understand what he means by that, by using it like as a tool, you know. But
yes, and you know what?
I'd like to learn more stuff what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm going to teach you some now. But let me also say that I don't believe in nuclear bombs. I think they are a hoax. I just use that as an example. But just to teach more about the Bible, I'm going to say this and I'm going to fall back. The Greeks and the Egyptians unified in 3150 BC. And if you count 9 months back from December, you will end up in the month of March. How did Jesus' birthday end up being in December, as well as Atum, Narmer, and all the other sun gods? Because 9 months from March, you will end up in December. But that impregnation period that starts in March is synonymous of the pre-Julian calendar, if I'm not mistaken. I get my calendars mixed up sometime. But the first month on the pre-Julian calendar, I believe the Roman calendar, was March. That's why it's called March, because we step off with our left foot and begin to march. And there was a 10-month calendar with a 360-day year. The Mayans and all of the ancients had that. And when we fail in consciousness, it was symbolic of our journey from Eden. Now, people with the Bible say that we originated in Eden, but most people say that we come from out of Africa. There's a bit confusion there. The first Exodus happened out of Eden, and what man did was create new world centers in Greece and Egypt. Those two empires became the second world centers. There was another Exodus out of Africa and Greece, which led to the creation of the Western world. So the Exodus they give you in the Bible is synonymous with out of Africa. But there was an Exodus prior to the book of Genesis. There was an Exodus prior to the biblical Exodus where we came from Eden. And the further we left the center, the less knowledge we had of the self, and religions were created. And we lost more and more of that knowledge. We went from a 360-degree calendar, to be short, to make a long story short, we went from a 360-day calendar, which was synced with Polaris and the true nature of the luminaries. And we then went to moon calendars, lunar calendars, which still many Eastern traditions and religions still have. And last but not least, we de-evolved finally to the low sun calendars and the sun gods that we're still under today. Sun calendars was the lowest form. It was the lowest way of timekeeping. It's the lowest form of looking at the heavens through this type of theology. So when you go back to the center, that's Polaris, and you start looking at the stars different than the biblical account and the astrotheological account. That's what I'm trying to get us back to with the mother goddess concept. When you talk about sin in the Bible, that's the root word of syncretism. So you can't really be a syncretist and also be biblical based. I'm just being honest, not to be an insult, because the Bible teaches that to sync things with Jesus is evil, it's sinful. So nothing can compare with Jesus. And when you do so, it's blasphemous to a Christian, because like Santos said, he glorifies the scripture. And to him, Christianity is the oldest thing. And it never was a time when Christianity didn't exist. If you ask me, that was never a time when the creator didn't exist. But all belief systems come after the true fact of nature and the creator. So I'm going back to the source, which is the center, where all compasses are pointing us to. And some people are just going back into a book of King James, a Bible. I'm pointing people to the North Pole and to the center of themselves. And some people are pointing them inside of a book. I teach that the human is the book. So when you ask me to decode the Bible, I'll do it real quickly. It's composed of 2 testaments because there was 2 pharaohs. Let me break that down to you. I'm sharing my screen. I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, we can see. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm trying to find some artwork here real quick. So this unification that happened under this guy here, Norma, exalted the male over the women and children. And that's the patriarchal world we live in today. You can see in this art that the pharaoh is bigger than the woman and the children. This is called hieratic scale, meaning that the pharaoh is God. When the ancients did their carvings, people who were worshipped as gods were carved as giants to show that their rank structure in the society. This is called hieratic scale. And most people say that the pharaohs were gods or Anunnakis or giants. No, they just was carved big to show their place in society. They were worshipped as God, and women and children were treated like peasants, as you can see in this picture. That's what the Pope does today. So the Pope wears the same hat that the pharaoh wear. This is the same hat that Santa Claus wear. Here's the first Pope, Norma. This is the same thing that Santa Claus wear. Saint Nicholas, the cane in his hand with the hat on. This is Dagon, the fish god. When you worship Jesus, this is who you're worshiping. Dagon, the fish god, the god of the Freemasons. So you have to free your mind all the way out of the deception if you want to be free. Let's talk about Pan. It's a form of Pan. The Pope is a form of this goat god named Pan. Remember, they say Jesus is the ram. Pan carries these two horns, by the way, and the staff is the same thing as the Pope's hat and the rod that I just showed you. So that staff and those two horns are the equivalent of Dagon's hat right here in his wand. The scepter and the hat, those two horns are the fish hat. You see the Pope with it right here. Dagon, the fish god, is a god that's equivalent to Jesus. Remember, Jesus is a fish god because his symbol is a fish. Jesus' symbol is a fish. Well, Jesus is this God here. I'm trying to wake Christians up and let them know that you are worshiping Dagon. You're worshiping the Pope, Christians. And I'm trying to get you out of that deception. That's all I'm trying to do. So if you see the two pillars that's on his head, what that is the two pillars that you see right here on the head of Horus, because Horus is Jesus. Those two pillars are the two testaments of the Bible. The word testament has the root word testes. What are testes, Brother Sanchez? Testes. You see that there are two of them. And when we go to court, let me show you something. And I'm gonna be done with this in a minute. Give me 1 second because I didn't have this stuff pulled up, but I will. I want you guys to pay attention because this is important. I'm looking for the picture of the pharaoh swearing in. Okay. If you give me 1 second, here it is right here. So if you look at what's on his head, it's those two pillars that was on Horus. This is the god Min. M-I-N is Menes. Menes. I hope you guys are taking notes. Hold on. At the end of all Christian prayers, you say Amen. Amen is Amun. It's the first pharaoh that throwed us into the New World Order. It's when you talk about Genesis, it's the genetics of the pharaoh. The Bible is a book of royal succession of the royal family. So let's look up Amun. You see, this is our moon, which is also Zeus Ammon.